To jury selection in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Combs will be present this morning in a New York court while he faces multiple charges, including organized crime, racketeering, and human trafficking. To make matters worse, Diddy's motion to have Sintra beat Cassie be excluded as evidence has also been denied. Published first by CNN, the video showed Diddy violently hitting Cassandra Ventura and then dragging her by the hair. Diddy's lawyers have tried several times for this video to be ruled as evidence and now argue that these images have been edited to make Diddy look worse. They claim that the original tape lasts more than 30 minutes and that cutting it makes it inadmissible. Combs wants that video or videos to be excluded from the trial and for that he uses his motion in limine to exclude the images of the March 5, 2016 incident. An in limine motion is a request prior to the trial that intends to prevent a certain evidence from being presented or to limit it in any way. The request begins by saying, quote, "There is no longer any dispute that the images of CNN of March 5, 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel presented by the government in 3 separate views are totally inaccurate, as they have been altered, manipulated, accelerated, and edited out of sequence. As indicated below, CNN paid, named, we do not know who it is, for the images, copied that material in an unknown way, presented it disorderly, and destroyed the original. Therefore, all the material of CNN is inaccurate and inadmissible. As for the 2 videos filmed with an iPhone 6, those recordings are also inaccurate and inadmissible for the reasons exposed later." Now let's talk about the clash in the room between the accusation and the defense for the explosive video that supposedly shows Sean Diddy Combs hitting his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Diddy's lawyers are asking to exclude the recording of the next sexual crime trial. Legal collaborator Brian Bachmeier explains to us what this could mean for the high-profile case. Nice to have you. Well, they want the video out. What is your argument? Mark Agnifilo, Sean Combs' lawyer, maintains, surely you recognize the phrase, that it is not a true and exact representation of what the video shows. He argues several things, that CNN took the video and accelerated it, that he cut it in an editing, and that he is not faithful. He also claims that the original video no longer exists, and that being adulterated, the jury should not see it. According to Diddy's lawyers, if the original does not exist or has been manipulated, no video should be presented to the jury. What does CNN say about these accusations? CNN replied that it did not alter or change anything, and that in fact, it has the original. So, at various levels, Sean Combs' argument comes down, because if it is accelerated, and it seems that it is to a certain extent, but the original exists, it can still be used as proof against Sean Combs. Not necessarily for treatment accusations, rich conspiracy, or transportation for prostitution purposes, but to show that force was exerted to keep the victim number 1, which we believe is Cassie, under his control for treatment purposes and rich conspiracy. Diddy's legal team has just presented a motion alleging that he cannot be considered responsible for the crimes committed because he was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. In plain language, he was too high on drugs to know what he was doing. It's a desperate maneuver, but they're serious. They even have a psychiatrist willing to testify that Diddy's cognitive functions were diminished during the alleged attacks, treatment, and coercion. However, the prosecutors do not accept it. They immediately presented a motion to block that testimony, arguing that mental deterioration does not exempt criminal conduct, especially when crimes span decades and a calculated coordination. Even worse, Diddy's request to suppress the most forceful evidence, including security recordings and sexual tapes, was already denied. He ran out of options, and that is precisely why his lawyers are abandoning the boat. In 2016, Diddy was captured by surveillance cameras, brutally hitting Cassie Ventura in a hotel corridor. He dragged her by the hair, threw objects at her, and screamed. Everything in front of the camera. The video was buried until CNN rescued it. Diddy's team qualified the images as edited and misleading, alleging that they were accelerated and out of context. They interposed an unlimited motion for the judge to remove the video. Judge's response? Denied request. Even worse, CNN claims to have the original tape unedited, and the court is willing to show it to the jury. Cassie will not hide behind a pseudonym. Unlike other victims who will testify anonymously, Cassie will appear in public with her full name to describe in detail the abuse she suffered. When she does, she waits for the doors to open, because after her complaint, new accusers emerged. Federal agents raided Diddy's house in Los Angeles and Miami, and what they found was shocking. Tapes, recordings, and hard drives that allegedly contain images of the so-called freak-offs. They were not parties. They were supposed planned, recorded and cataloged sexual treatment operations. Diddy's team tried to allege that the evidence was obtained illegally. The judge did not accept it. Everything is admissible. Attorney Anthony Rico, key piece of his defense, filed a request to withdraw from the case, stating that under no circumstances he could continue to represent Sean Combs according to the ABA standards for criminal justice. Translation: he saw what that evidence contained and did not want to get involved. The high-profile Buffet, Groupman, Shire, Macelas, and Sachs, who represented him for more than 20 years, also left him. There are rumors that Lady Gaga herself threatened to leave the office if they did not release him. This is not just legal consequences. Celebrities run to distance themselves from the collapse. Usher, who lived with Diddy at age 13, should never have seemed like an alarm signal. He sold himself as a mentor, an opportunity for a young talent. But now it seems like a carefully set trap. A new video shows Diddy making comments about sharing a bed with Usher, remembering their mornings together and joking about frosted flakes and fighting. He even admits in front of the camera that they used to wake up together when Usher was a child. The tone fades and the world finally realizes what used to be taken for eccentricity now looks much darker. With Diddy facing accusations of treason, abuse, and coercion, these old clips are reevaluated. Then came Usher's interviews. In a conversation with Rolling Stone, he confirmed that, as a teenager, he lived at Diddy's house, stayed until late at parties, and watched adult activities that he did not understand. He did not call it abuse, but the implications were clear. During the trial, prosecutors planned to call Usher not only as a character witness, but as someone who may have been indoctrinated. His presence will change everything, and it gets worse. Because when you combine those childhood years with what came out later, the claims for herpes and the accusations of reckless sexual conduct, the chronology looks more like a pattern. Usher paid more than $1 million to solve a woman's claim, who claimed that he deliberately transmitted an ETS to her. The details were disturbing. A greenish secretion, emotional trauma, multiple couples. It was not an isolated error. It was a domino effect, and the first card may have fallen in Diddy's house. Former collaborators like Gene Deal and Jaguar Wright have confirmed the rumors. According to them, Diddy's parties were not just wild. They were predators, drugs, minor guests, and cameras everywhere. Everything was documented, everything stored. With the tapes of the freak-offs accepted as evidence, it is clear that what happened behind Diddy's doors was not fun. It was calculated. If Usher confirms what many suspect, Diddy's trial will not be just about Cassie. It will reveal a decades-old exploitation system. That's why the prosecution fought so hard to keep the footage. That's why the judge denied the defense's request to suppress it. And that's why Diddy's lawyers flee. The trial is no longer an isolated moment. It is a legacy of power, manipulation, and silence that collapses. The room not only sees Diddy fall, but the collapse of an entire era. What happens now does not end with Combs. It reaches every corner of an industry that protected its stars and silenced its victims. Behind the velvet rope, beyond the flashes, there was a system. Fame was promised to young artists in exchange for silence. The parties became manipulation. Nobody dared to challenge the king, until now. Diddy's last move was to try to postpone the trial for 2 months. He alleged that he needed more time to prepare. The judge did not accept it. With 4 buffets and months of maneuvers, the court ruled that he had plenty of time. That failure was a fatal blow. It means that the jury selection begins on time, that the tapes, freak off, could be projected publicly, and that all attempts to suppress evidence, videos, psychiatric testimony, cell recordings, have failed. The accusation built a story that goes far beyond Cassie. She is only victim number 1. Victims 2, 3, and 4 are preparing to testify. Most will be anonymous, but their stories are surprisingly similar. Drug parties, coercion, surveillance, and silence. And then there is Ashton Kutcher, the last name anyone expected in the trial. Sources say he will testify. Why? Because what he saw at those parties would support the stories of the victims. Those close to Kutcher say he was shocked. He is not a victim, but he can be a key witness to the culture that Diddy created. Excess, control, and fear. Meanwhile, Diddy's team argues that the accusation is racially motivated, a system that tries to bring down a successful black man. Audacious defense, yes, but the victims, including Cassie and many prosecutors, are also black. The argument collapses before the evidence, because in the end, this is not about race. It's about what happens when power is unleashed, when money protects predators and the untouchables settle accounts. Diddy believed she would resist with money, lawyers, and fame. But his empire is cracking. With Usher stepping up, Cassie ready to testify, and every failed motion piling up. The end could be closer than he thinks. And then came the final blow. As the courtroom held its breath, the leaked audio played. Raw, unfiltered, and devastating. In it, Diddy's voice echoed with fury and domination, confirming what many feared but few dared to say out loud. Gasps filled the room. Jurors shifted in their seats. It was no longer just about Cassie or even the freak-off tapes. It was about decades of unchecked power, silenced victims, and a system built to protect predators cloaked in fame. The judge, unmoved by the theatrics of the defense, delivered the sentence with chilling finality: life imprisonment. And just like that, the empire fell. No more lawyers, no more lies. Just a man who once ruled the music world.